Hello chat and welcome to the first ever Postscripted, a talk show that is your go-to place for Postscripted news, both official and unofficial, community driven and so forth. We'll be analysing the EU ladder tournament, along with reviewing the previous week's matches and talk about the upcoming matches in the ladder. Not only that, we'll also be covering any community events hosted by clans or by players and how you can get involved in these unique and exciting events. So sit back, close the hatch, mute command chat. The show is about to begin. Joining me for the first ever show is Wabbit, lead moderator and admin for the EU ladder tournament. When it comes to who knows what about Postscriptum, it's safe to say he's one of the go-to guys. So Wabbit, welcome to the show. How you doing, my guy?
Yeah, pretty good, thanks. How are you, Yuzu?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. So I know you're quite busy, so I'll keep the topics moving as quick as I can. We'll get onto the EU ladder a little while because I know Postscriptum's been quite busy lately. We've had a free weekend along with a sale and also a new game mode to celebrate Halloween. This has brought a lot of new players into the game. So my first question to you, Wabbit, what is your first piece of advice for any new players coming into Postscriptum?
Oh, there's quite a lot you could say, really. I think the first thing I would say to a new player is just join a section. Make sure you've got a working mic. That's the number one thing. Get a mic. Don't be scared to talk to players in the game and just ask questions. If no one's answering or they're being idiots, just leave, move section until you find a group. There's always a couple of good sections in any team on most servers. The servers are really well administered nowadays, so you shouldn't have any trouble finding that. That's the best way to start learning.
True. I find when I first got into Postscriptum, the biggest thing that helped me was just simply talking to people. Because unlike things like Call of Duty or Battlefield, you could name so many other FPS games. Postscriptum is all about communication. If you're not communicating, you're not going to get anything done. It's not a game for really lone survivors, is it?
Absolutely. I mean, you can play it that way. There are players who don't like to talk or are a bit shy or don't have a working mic, and they can still enjoy the game without that. But you're really missing out on, a good 50%, a good chunk of the game itself. It's built around communication and teamwork, not just on a squad section level, but the way it interacts with different types of squads, sections. Your armor, your logistics, and then your commander as well. And when you get into things like clan level engagements and tournaments and so on, then you can really start to see more advanced tactics and strategies get deployed and the planning that goes into them ahead of time. So there's a lot to grow into with Postscriptum. The best way to start is get a mic, talk to people, follow people around. Start with the more simple profiles, like a rifleman, medic, MG, that kind of thing. Don't jump into leadership roles straight away. Just get a feel for the game that way. People die a lot when you first join. It puts people off. It gets you frustrated with the game, but you just got to keep persevering and start learning about tactics. Even reading about real-world tactics helps you in this game. You're using cover correctly, identifying the type of cover, being able to identify your targets quickly and relay that information. The way you communicate, it's just something you learn, and I'm learning something. I've been playing it for over 2 years. Every time I play, there's something new. You listen to other people and you pick up stuff from them, whether it's their mistakes or what they do right.
Exactly. Well, moving on to the next thing then. Zombies. Let's talk about zombies. A unique game mode that just got added. What do you think about it?
Zombies, I love it. I thought it was great. It's a nice change of pace. It's a complete... some people absolutely hate it, especially the veterans. There are a lot of purists in the game who love to sort of reenact a bit more and play the game as it's meant to be played, and I totally understand their frustrations with that. And at the same time, I think it's a nice break for the developers to have a play with their game. They want to push it into other areas and do something fresh and new, and I think that helps re-energize them as a studio. So I think it's good for them. And love it or hate it, it's generated a big conversation and a lot of feelings about it on a lot of different platforms, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, Steam, anywhere. And whenever I've been playing in that game mode, everyone's been jumping around, having a blast, really enjoying it, and it has some really cool effects, stuff that the community would have liked to have had in the game, like the headlights and things. But of course, it's not going to be a permanent game mode because once you get used to this game mode, you'll start to see the cracks and where some of the bugs are and the things that are harder to fix, where the headlights might not be reacting correctly with the environment and stuff like that. But it's not meant to be a super serious mode. It's meant to be a temporary game mode, just to show off what it can do, and be a bit of fun. They might make it permanent yet. They might bring it back. You never know. But I think it does show what you can do. And there's another argument as well about the teamwork side of it. It actually does require a heck of a lot of teamwork to win as the survivors, and there are strategies you can deploy as the zombies. It might not have the same mileage as the original game, but there's still, I think, a lot of merit in the game mode. It's a lot of fun, I think, but at the same time, I understand why people are upset with it, that just want to get more content about World War II and keep it as realistic as possible.
Yeah, I fully agree on everything you said, and I believe it only took Snazzy when he was talking, Snazzy being the community rep for for Postscriptum, it only took them about 3 weeks to create. So, I gotta say, for a game mode made in 3 weeks, it's pretty good for what they did. Especially, my favorite part about it is the environmental details. Like you said, the headlights, the lighting, the dense fog. I would
Yeah, the
love to
fog
see that.
changes up the game.
Yeah, I would love to see that ported into the Chapter 1 maps, per se, in those big open fields of drill. Two tanks ambushing each other in the fog. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, it just shows what the game is, the engine's capable of, and these are things they can leverage in future content. I'm not sure how far they're going to continue at this stage, but they've got a substantial amount of their current roadmap to finish. So I can understand why they're not willing to talk about what the future holds just yet. They've got to get some major blocks of content on. So things like the SDK it's not a small thing to make. They've got to crack on.
Exactly, and I think that's a point that many people mention when it comes to the zombie modes. When there has, as you said, there has been people who have been negative towards the zombie modes, but I think a lot of people miss the point that it's also a showcase of what the game is capable of, especially when modding support comes out. I mean, if we look back at other games, DayZ, for example, was a mod for Arma 2, and look how that took off, the success that was. So this, not only was it a nice little fun casual game mode that clans and public servers can run, but it shows the potential in the future of what modders could do to the game. And when it comes to events that are run by clans, which we will get on later, there's such potential with zombie modes and what other modders could bring to the game. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the main reasons why people were upset with the game wasn't the fact that it was zombies and then the cool atmospherics that they've put in. I think it was the diversion of their resources and their time away from what they see as the core game, and the fact that there are some lingering bugs and optimization issues which are frustrating the community. But they are a really small team, and I think they're struggling to do that. If they just did the optimization alone, there wouldn't be any content, and they wouldn't keep the game going. The player numbers do go in peaks and troughs, and it follows the content releases, not the bug fixes. So if you put the bug fixes in, the content still continue. The player numbers will still continue to sort of gradually lower down. But of course, the vets want to see a lot of these things fixed, and new players want to see better optimization when they come in to test their rigs, no matter how powerful they are. So they have to hit the game on so many different levels, and it's about switching up in different times, as much keeping them sane, because you can't just do optimization and nothing else. You can't just do SDK and nothing else. You've got to have your staff focused on what they're good at. So you've got your artists, and your layer planners working on the actual atmospherics and so on, and you've got your coders doing either bug fixing and splitting their time with new content ideas as well, because they don't just give content as in a new vehicle, so they add features to the game as well. They have been looking at flamethrowers, for example, in the past. Snazzy's been famous for saying definitely no King Tigers, definitely no flamethrowers, definitely no gore, no pinging headshots, and a few other things we've never seen, but we've got a lot of them. So never say never with a game like Postscriptum or a studio like Periscope. You never know what they might come up with. But they've got a lot of things on their plate that they need to get done on this current roadmap. So I'm looking forward to the SDK release and the sandbox mode, which should follow right on the heels of that. That'll be really, really good, the sandbox mode, because that'll enable, you don't need to be a coder or a modder to really get to grips with the engine. You can do quite a lot of things with that sandbox mode, so that'll be brilliant for server communities who want that lighter interface to get in and create their own content. Especially for the realism and one life groups that are in the game. There's a healthy community there that really needs a bit more support as well. So the game it helps different types of players. It's not just one kind of player.
Exactly, and as you said, they are a small studio, so they need a balance making new content, optimizing current content. So there was one point you mentioned about how the zombie mode did affect bringing numbers into the game, and we did just have a free weekend along with a 50% sale, I think.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on the free weekends? Because we saw quite a drastic increase to player numbers, which is great. For me personally, I love it because it means I get to go into a tank and break new records, stomping on new players. So that's amazing. What do you think about these free player weekends though? Because I know there has been mixed feedback from it. Do you think they should do more, or do you think maybe they should go the Epic Game Store route, where they even, for limited time, if you claim the game, you get the game free? What's your opinion on that?
I think free weekends are great. Honestly, I think they introduce a lot of new players into the game. People just have a play around and test it out. There are a lot of downsides. It's not a simple yes, it's great, or it's really bad. There are so a lot of it is about the timing, and I think that's what a lot of people in the community complain about. It's not necessarily that it's a free weekend; it's when they are, and they're always coinciding with a new content release or something like Chapter Z, for example. So the problem with that is quite often with a brand new release, it's not been tested with the community yet. It's not been made live, so it's right at the same time. So it's quite a stressful period for the studio as well, because they've just released this new baby there. It's out into the environment. People are playing it. They're hoping they're going to enjoy it, and they're also worried that if the testing team have managed to pick out all the bugs, they'll know that there are some bugs remaining when they release it, because they'll have a list. It's whether it's hit an acceptable level, and those bugs can, if they've not found everything and they find a really bad one after release, then that can have a really negative effect on all these new players coming in. They'll see Postscriptum as a buggy mess and then they won't come back. That's the fear from the community, and so sometimes it's founded. Some releases have gone better than others.
Yeah.
But we haven't, I say Periscope don't have a dedicated testing team that's paid for, and Snazzy's the lead test manager at Periscope. He's the only paid tester. Winters is a volunteer, and he does a great, he's a great help to Periscope, but he's not a Periscope employee. But he does a lot of work for them. And then we've got a group of QAs, quality assurance people as well, and then there's the community testers, and then we may have 60, 70 of them, but if we can get half to turn up, and then there's quite a lot of tests, so it's difficult to get every bug ironed out, and then for the devs to actually fix them all at the same time. So that's the problem with a free weekend, is it shows off sometimes the bugs in the game, and that's what upsets, because a lot of these vets have got clans that they want to grow and they want to get more people in and fresh blood, because clans will naturally lose players over time. Playing a game for 2 years, nobody can blame you if you get a little bored and want to go play something else and then you don't come back. That's just the way these games go.
Exactly, yeah. So going back to what I said, do you think Periscope should do maybe a free game giveaway on the Epic Game Store? Do you think that's something potentially in the future? Because I think the game is 4 years old at this point, so...
Well, so kind of going back to the free weekend thing is one way of getting players to come in, test it, hopefully like it, and then buy it. So a team like this, it may be small, but it still needs funding, so it still needs to develop sales. And if it gets a huge block of sales, even at 50% on a weekend like that, then that enables them to carry on. And if they do really well, perhaps even grow. And because player numbers they've already bought the game. So if it keeps going up, then that's great. But if it keeps going down, it doesn't really matter to Periscope that much because they've made the sales anyway, and it's about continuing. Now, I don't work for Periscope, so I can't speak for Periscope, and I don't know exactly how things are. But this is just my own opinion formed from my
Yeah,
relationships
yeah.
with them and so on. So I just want to make that clear as well.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, I've got the Steam chart sales up now. Just look at the figures, and they basically almost doubled their peak player base over the Halloween event, which was great. That free weekend was great, and I have personally myself seen a lot of new players in game who then bought the game as well from the free weekend. So it's something
A lot.
I would hope to see in the future, and I think a lot of people in the community would. But there is like strange divide where some people don't like these free weekends, where some people really like them.
Because it interrupts their gameplay. They want people to be able to play together and use mics. A lot of them don't use mics when they first start. They don't realize how important it is. But what it does is it brings people in that would you wouldn't expect to see in the game. And a lot of these players don't expect to particularly like the game, or they'll discover things about the game they didn't realize were there, like the communication side of it. And again, that's hard because it's a free weekend, and not most people, a lot of people are not communicating. So they're seeing, in some ways, the worst of it. But if they meet enough veterans that are doing it right, and they suddenly see a big difference from their first two games where they were in with a group of new players, and it's a bit of a mess, and then suddenly they join this squad. And there's just 3 or 4 guys in it who are all talking to each other. They're calling out enemy contacts. They're maneuvering against a particular, I don't know, a tank or an objective. And the way that engagement goes, they're in the middle of it with them. They're listening to it, they're watching it, and they're following. It's quite an amazing experience. It kind of lifts the game out of its usual COD Battlefield kind of solo experience into, oh, hang on, I get it now. The marksman's at the back with his long-range weapon covering you from the MG that's firing at you from the window. All these little things just work together, and you can have a laugh as well. There's a lot of banter in the game. Um, and that's something I've rarely experienced in games like COD or Battlefield since Battlefield 2 a long time ago, when that was the last team FPS game I used to play before Postscriptum came along. So it's about discovering that element of it, and that's why free weekends are important. And it's important that vets hang in there, kind of just right off the weekend as an attempt to get do the best teamwork thing you can, and just focus on the new players and introduce them and be patient. Patience is a massive skill in Postscriptum. Um, a lot of people don't have a lot of patience, so it's something you need to master in the game, whether that's playing tactically or just putting up with some new players that don't know which button it is to drink your canteen or why it's important, things like that.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I think that's something where a lot of clans could actually benefit from a free weekend if they change the title of their server to. You've seen
Youth
a lot of
friendly.
games, noobs friendly, yeah, and that could be where a clan really benefits, where they get admins on the server, they get veterans on the server, and they teach these new players. That's actually a good way for them clans to grow. So
Quite a few do that, and especially in the past, they've done it a lot more
give
as
a
well.
shout out. Probably a good
They
word.
recognise it's an opportunity to, one, recruit, and two, improve the player base, and
I
help
will do
help
that.
new players. It's still tough to do that, but you know, it's not a new idea.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well, we'll move on to the next thing then, because again, we've had a lot of news from Postscript in the last week and a half. The new teased content of the Maginot map. Is there anything you might, have you done any secret play testing with Periscope? Something you could maybe, tell us about this map?
I have signed an NDA,
An
so I won't be
NDA,
able to
yeah.
discuss anything about that anyway. I am really excited about it. I think the whole Chapter 2 France 1940 is a brilliant idea because it's not been done properly by any studio or game in the past, really. So I'm thrilled that Postscriptum went that direction. The same way as Chapter 1, Operation Market Garden hasn't really been done well or properly in the past by other studios either, and that's my favorite kind of operational, in World War II. Loved the film Bridge Too Far. It brought back those memories growing up watching that with my
Yeah.
brother and so on. So I absolutely loved that aspect of it. Maginot would be a good way to finish the third map. But my own opinion is I think more is needed for both Chapter 2 and 3 to bring them up to scratch with Chapter 1. Needs more maps, more layers. The BEF would be fantastic to add into Chapter 2, add that bit more variety. And the same with Chapter 3, a few more maps in other areas, other like the Canadians were there, the British were there. We could do with a bit more of those elements in those
Yeah.
chapters. And if Periscope so decide, they may well want to do that. I really don't know. They're keeping their cards very close to the chest as to what the future is, mainly because they've got so much work on right now. They've got a lot to do, and the community is really pushing for the SDK and the sandbox mode at the moment.
Yeah, and that is something we'll get onto later in my little list of things we're going to talk about. So you've play tested the Maginot map. You said, do you? I know you're under NDA, so
I didn't actually say that. No.
okay. Well, I know you're under NDA, so you got to be careful what you say. Do you have any rough idea when we might see it?
Well, when they start pumping out, images of it, they've already released what the map is and so on. It's hard to say, but it means it's close. When they start making it public knowledge about what the map is, they've shown some really good pictures. I think it could be, we're talking months now, not years at least, but it has been delayed. I don't know the reasons why for that. I'm not party to those things, but yeah, the studio did lose a considerable number of developers that have been in it from the start for the last sort of 4 years in that studio. So that's taken time, obviously, to reset. They've had to get new people in, and they can't just be productive on day one. It takes months for them to get to know not just the OE core, but also the way that Periscope have built Postscriptum using that core. So there's a lot of knowledge that needs to be passed on. So that slows down the remaining team members and the new team members while they get up to speed. I think I hope they're pretty much there now. So we should start to see more momentum building. The stuff we've had so far has been things that were nearly finished or been worked on partly, I think, for the last few months prior to the, some of those, the other coders leaving. So, Maginot, I'm hoping it's going to be a Christmas present. It might be really early Q1, but I'm hoping we'll see it in the next couple of months.
I think that would be a good time, an early Christmas present, because I imagine there might be another Steam sale around Christmas time. So I think
it's likely to probably coincide with that, and then there's the SDK as well. That the SDK is their priority right now. That they've got the tools from Epic to configure that properly. I think there was quite a few wranglings going on behind the scenes because they had to go through AUI to talk to Epic because it's their engine, the Unreal Engine on OE's core. So as the publisher, so Periscope are. It's not all on them. They have to go through other people, and sometimes it's out of their hands. So they've been as frustrated as everybody else, I think.
Okay, well, that's all I've got for this part. So we'll move on to the next part, which I'm probably more exciting for you to talk about. It's the EU ladder. So I heard there's a new website. Is that true?
Yes, there is. Yeah, it came out of nowhere.
Okay. Do you want to give a shout out who to make that? I'm trying to get it loaded on screen now. I've got to open it. And what features it might have for people to go to?
Yeah, it's a French chap from a clan called FFI, which is the Free French in the Normandy campaign. Hang on, let me just. I want to get his name absolutely right because I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right.
Yep. No worries. You're his mentor. That should answer your question. True. Mep has been guiding me quite a lot. He's been guiding me quite a lot, haven't you, Mep?
Sorry about the delay there. Couldn't find it.
It's all right.
No, FFI. It's Alexo Pico.
Alexo
So,
Pico.
yeah, Alexo Pico. He actually came to us about a week ago and just asked, do you mind if we add some links into the Discord and talk about the ladder onto the website he's building? I think it's for FFI or for the French community anyway. And I think this was hopefully something that's come of our admin team trying to push promotion of the ladder a bit more, not just within. There's a lot of English speaking casters, but we didn't have anyone doing it in French or German, Spanish, Russian, and there are lots of other languages out there we'd like to encourage to do more.
Yeah,
and as part of the ladder, sometimes the French teams are quiet on our Discord. You see a lot of the British, sorry, not British, but English speaking or teams talking about things, whether it's rules or anything like that. And it's one of the main reasons why when we lost Jolek, who's one of the three admins in season one, when we looked for a replacement, Alexis Remington, who's a well-known moderator on the Periscope Discord and Steam forums with us, we approached him because we wanted someone who had a bigger contact within the French community, because it's a big community. It might not be quite as big as, say, the German one. I think the German one's probably one of the biggest, alongside maybe the Americans. But
Yeah.
so we wanted to get another language in. So Virgil's Italian, I'm British, Alexis is French. We just had a German Polish that was Jolek. So we want to try and keep that mix, because the community isn't just speaking and playing in English, and there are other servers out there, and we want to try and keep it's an EU ladder, but we're open to anyone in the world. It's just you play it on
Yeah.
EU servers during EU time zones, and that's just for to enable the games to happen. Because if we had to play in American time zones and Russian and so on, it would become a nightmare to organize games. So that's the only limiter, but you can be from anywhere. We did have a Russian team with us for the first round, but unfortunately their numbers have dropped, so EBC have had to pull out. But we
Yeah.
got the Finns. Finns let loose. Were their partners in that team.
Okay, well, we'll talk about the previous game then. So we're already 2 rounds in, so it's going to be hard to talk about all the action for each team that's already happened. So we'll just go down the teams one by one, if you like, and we can go over their previous results, their previous games, and their upcoming games. And I don't think there's anyone better to talk about the standings than you. I'll be honest, sometimes I look at the team standings, and they confuse me a little bit. So if I
I'm
bring
not
up the Google Sheet, am I allowed to show the Google Sheet on stream with the current
with
standings?
the group stage phases. Yeah, sure, that's fine.
Okay, so we'll start with Parabellum, which is CIB and Storm. There's Can you go through their results for us and who they'll be facing in the next round, maybe?
CIB and Sturm. Yeah. So let me just have a quick look.
So that would be
So
Parabellum.
yeah. So just a word of warning, and not warning, but note: is Virgil put this one together? He's much better at all the group stage stuff and the points and organising the maps and stuff. So that's Virgil's sort of areas of expertise. I generally focus on promotions and the rules, the core rules kind of thing. But
Yeah.
this is Virgil's baby. He knows it a lot better than I do. He tends to fill it in. So there may be some bits, like there's one column there, I'm not exactly sure what it is, which is column E. I was looking at it the other day and went, I've got to talk to Virgil about that.
Is
I
that the
think
one
it's
that
number
starts
of
with
games
N?
played. Yeah, I think it's number of games played, but I've
Yeah.
never confirmed it with him.
So I worked that out. I believe because every team is allowed to skip one round, aren't they? So I believe that's the number of games they've played. So King's Knight Window, they played the first round, but Parabellum skipped, I think, round 1, if that's right.
Yeah, so I was actually considering doing a video on this early this week, just to go over the structure and why we went this route. We kind of have to dip into the first season a little bit to explain why we've gone this way in season 2. So in season 1, I wasn't around right at the beginning. I was a member of 40 to 1. I was an officer in that clan, and Virgil kind of approached some of us and approached a heck of a lot of other people in other clans about running a tournament, a global tournament or a European one. He was really, really enthusiastic and full of energy, and really funny to talk to, light-hearted guy, and he got a lot of people on board. He did really well with that. By about January, I think they'd actually decided to get something going. They got some rules together and sort of ran off with it. And it was very quick. It wasn't it came together really quickly, and as a result the rules that were written were had quite a few holes in it. They hadn't really been tested properly and so on, and that kind of bit us on the bum a bit further down the line.
Yeah.
And it also set us up for a season which would last 45 weeks, so nearly a year, and it was just too long. We only had 10 teams at the time at the start, and it meant if teams dropped out, we couldn't replace them. New teams that wanted to join us weren't allowed. There were a number of issues with that, and some teams that they didn't like the game mode, and they'd basically signed the clans up for a year of a game mode they didn't like. So it was just RAS only. There was no offensive mode or evasion mode or zombie mode or anything like that.
Yeah.
So We had to end it early. We ended it halfway after 9 rounds, which was about 18 weeks, another 4 for finals and so on. So it was a long, good old season. So this time round, we decided we've got to get it down to about 12, 15 weeks, 3 months really, an average. We're probably going to hit 4 now. If we'd had 8 teams, that would have been nice and easy. 2 groups of 4. The winners of those groups would go into the semis, and then the semis go to the finals. Done. That would have been a nice clean wrap. Um, we got 10 teams sign up. So the way we tried to keep it as short as possible. So we kept the groups, and it meant we had to go from 3 rounds to 5, and that meant one team would have to skip a game or be rested every round. And Parabellum was the first team in Group 1, is it? Yeah, in Group 1
Yeah.
to be rested, along with the Red Devils in Group 2. So those 2 teams did not play in the first 2 weeks. So one round will last 2 weeks, and it's 2 weeks because we play round robin. So the first week you'll play the German side on Vagel S04, which is round 1 map, and then the next week you'll play the Americans, and so on. And so that way you get the fair split on each side. So yeah, Parabellum didn't play the first one, and then the second round they were against Northern Union. Unfortunately, Northern Union, which is EVC, the Russian clan, and Finns let loose, they just didn't have the numbers. Either that or 501E smashed them so hard in round 1 that they just didn't want to do it again. But yeah, 501E did absolutely brilliantly against Northern Union. Northern Union, I spoke to their leaders, and they were just lacking a lot of experienced veteran players that weren't playing anymore. So and they were struggling to get numbers in. So they tried their best to stay in, but I think their leader themselves has left as well and moved on. So it's a sad thing to see, but we wish them all the best, and hopefully they'll come back all the stronger in future, maybe for next season. So Parabellum, unfortunately for them, have had 4 weeks now without a game, so they are absolutely gagging at the bit to get their game in, and they're against 501E, so that's going to be a heck of a contest.
It is. I mean, they've had 4 weeks, and then they're coming up against a strong team, so
yeah,
it's going to be interesting for them.
They're like a coiled snake now. I think that they've been playing a lot of practice games. They've not been idle. They've been testing themselves against others. Sturm, I know pretty well. I've known him since beta, really. I've been playing against and with those guys on various servers for the whole 2.5 years. Quite a few of them are active as well on the Postscriptum Discord, the Periscope Discord. So yeah, they're very, very experienced. They're quite laid back as well when it comes to these kind of matches. But they've got a lot of ideas. They'll have a lot of plans. CIB, a great bunch. I haven't got as much experience with them. I think they have a few personalities like the Mooing Cow. Obviously, if I don't mention his name, I'd probably get shamed by someone, but maybe by the cow himself. But he's got two. It's a couple of guys that are representing CIB in the ladder, and they're brilliant as well. Start Quo and so on. So there's some good people in Parabellum. I'm really looking forward to seeing how they stand up to the might of 501E, who is one of the few clans to not need to form a coalition. They're standing on their own might. So let's see how that goes.
Yeah, so the next team then on my list would be Coalition Francophone. I'm trying to pronounce that properly, which would be, this is a lot of clans that a lot of them I don't know about. We've got LNO, FFI, 7EBCA, 1RPC, 122E, and Red Dog. That's a lot of clans working together. So
yeah,
how have they been working so far?
I have to just notice Francophone have missed Red Dog off on the standings tab. I'll have to add that in. I just found them recently. I was working on one of the videos for all the clans in this season, and I suddenly noticed Red Dog was in there. So I think I've just got their logo and managed to sneak them in at the last minute. So I'm happy that I've got all the clans in this time. So that's a large collection of clans. Coalition Francophone were in season 1 as well. They're quite a long-standing group of alliances, if you like, and they have a lot of very different players, a lot of different characters in Coalition Francophone, and they did an incredible job against the Knights of the Windmill. They got all 6 caps, and they are screaming ahead really with the small victory points and the BVPs. Did they rest last round? Yes, they did.
They
So
did, yeah.
they're behind in the standings, but don't let that belie where they'll end up by the end of round 5 because they've had their rest round now. Um, and sadly for them, they're suffering from a similar problem Parabellum does. They're now going to face Northern Union, so they're not going to get a game in the next 2 weeks because they get an automatic win against Northern Union. So this is where it gets a little tricky. Probably don't want to get into the SVP side of it just now because we use them to decide the group winners if there's a draw. But we can't
Yeah.
do that in Group 1 now because there's no way to fairly calculate small victory points. So that'll have to be a playoff, which means we may have to add to the length of the ladder. But we'll see what happens when we get to the end of the 5th round.
Okay, then the next one will be Knights Windmill, which is, again, a lot of clans. PIB, RSI, the 501st, PAR, and the 13th LC. So a lot of clans in the Knights Windmill.
Yeah, 13th. I want to get a shout out to them because I'm from Lancashire, and the 13th Lancashire is a battalion in the 6th Airborne, not the 1st Airborne. So they weren't actually at Operation Market Garden. They weren't in Arnhem. They were part of more the Normandy side of things, Normandy landings. Yeah, but 13th Lancashire. Yeah, good shout out to them. So let me get back to the right tab. So yes, with Knights of the Windmill again. I don't know those clans that well in that group. I haven't actually found the time yet to get to watch that game either. That was recorded, so I'm not that familiar with how they're gonna play. They're on a rest this round as well, so definitely looking forward to catching one of their games soon. They did come up against Coalition Francophone in round 1 and they must have suffered mightily. I haven't seen that game either. That's the one I want to watch. So I don't know what happened there. If something just went wrong, or if Coalition Francophone were just, honed to such a fine point that they cut through and that. I'm hoping Knights of the Windmill will, make a good recovery and get stuck into the next one.
Yeah, and we'll get on to the French teams earlier because I do want to talk about the French teams a little bit. But next would be, I'm just looking at my list, 501E, which I think is another French team. It's just one whole clan, the 501E. I believe that's their name.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, 501E. Yeah, they've been around forever as well, from right from the beginning. I remember watching one of their promotion videos that they made very early on, after Postscriptum was released back in 2018. And it's a brilliant little video. They got some nice ones to watch. I remember playing against them as well in when I was a member of 40 to 1. It was one of our earlier matches. Had a little section running around, and we actually beat them. I think we were on the last cap. We'd almost capped it, and we won on tickets, so we didn't quite get that last cap. That's the only time I've really played against their entire clan. But they were by no means a pushover. They were very, very fierce and resilient on a number of caps in defence. We were playing attack, and we just had a few lucky breakthroughs, I think. But I think they've got stronger over the last year. I mean, their performance against Northern Union was excellent, but they've got some stiff game. They've got some good teams to face yet, so we'll see what happens there.
Yeah. And I think the final team for the group stage, Group 1, would be Northern Union, which we mentioned was the Finnish clan, and I believe they had some Estonians and Russians in there, which unfortunately had to pull out of the tournament. They did play the first round against 50E that we just mentioned. And,
yes, yeah. Yeah, I mean, a good bunch of guys, on the Finns let loose. I don't know them that well, but they're always very kind of relaxed people. That whenever I had a chat with them, I played with them a few times on certain servers. In EVC again, they were present in season 1. They were a lot stronger then. They had more numbers and more veterans, so that they were able to compete a bit more. But yeah, it's just sad to see them to leave. So there's no ill will there. We hope they can rebuild and come back stronger for season 3.
Yeah. So that leads us on to the second group stage, and first would be the Red Devils, and that would be 7AD and BIA.
Yes. Well, yeah, BIA, a fantastic bunch of lads. Of course, that's Virgil's clan as well. He actually plays in the ladder. So I try to remain as neutral as possible. I think you got Alexis that he's a member of 501E as well. I don't think Alexis plays though. He more is like an administrator and he helps run the clan and so on for 501E. I don't know too much about his relationship with the clan, but I know he's a solid member. He's one of the leaders, at the top. Um, but there are other people that actually run the matches and so on in 501E. So I'm sure he's cheering them on. But for Virgil, he gets to play with his mates, and yeah, he's it's great watching him. I do a couple of videos, and I seem to be drawn to watching what he gets up to and making jokes about him making pizza at the wrong time, things like that. But yeah, there's some good characters as well. I've seen quite a lot of the BIA people in the PSFN, which is the Postscriptum Fight Night that used to go on, and there were a lot of streamers in that.
Yeah,
That was really popular initially. It was Raz game mode as well. It's sad to see that fall away. I don't think they're running that now, but there's quite a few characters that come up. And then there's 7AD, who I know very well. I've played games with them quite a lot. I used to play on their server a lot when it's up and running. And hopefully, when we get more players back, they'll be able to seed it again. Um, so yeah, I know probably 7AD and clans like 40 to 1 very well, and Odin, who dropped out. They did have a third clan called Odin, which a bunch of guys I used to play with
about
right from the
Russian
beginning,
thing.
2018. We
Oh,
joined. Some of
oh.
us joined 40 to 1, and some of them stayed, independent and so on. So a lot of players move around or, leave the game and then come back at a later date. And Odin are in that phase where they've kind of banded together and they've moved off to play squad or something else. So, but the 7AD guys, they're a good solid bunch. Yeah, I've seen quite a few of their matches now. It's really good to see them and how they develop as well. They've got stronger since their first game. They've definitely tightened up a bit. Um, they did a lot better against Army Group Adler in the second game. They managed to hold that third cap. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and so leading on to the next team would be the 6 Guards Armor, which is just 6 GA on their own.
Yeah, yeah. Again, one of the few teams to be able to field just their own clan. 6GA, I don't know a terrible amount about. I've spoke to a few of their leaders from time to time. I've played on their server quite a lot more recently, um, and I've always liked their map rotations and so on. Really good bunch of guys. They admin their server really well. I'm really really excited for a mod that
I
they're
do.
they're focusing on as
I'll
well.
have that the next
6GA are
time.
kind of heavily involved with the Shifting Sands
I do,
mod,
Jabe.
which is
I
North
agree.
Africa. Probably my favorite theatre, not operation, but theatre wide. All of that
Yeah, yeah.
area. I really, really, I think Postscriptum, the core engine, really fits that kind of gameplay of long range engagements and combined arms with armor. So, 6GA, a very well organized group. They've been around again since the beginning. I need to watch them in a game, and I'll be excited to see them against Army Group Adler because I've been watching them for the last 2 games, casting that. So, yeah, looking forward to watching that one.
Yeah, I was fortunate. Well, I say for unfortunate, should I say, to play against them in the first round when I was still with the Rip in the Rusty 40 team, and it was a close game. I've got to say, it was a close game. They did end up taking both games from us. We did manage to take more caps from them, though. And one thing that stood out was their armor was very well organized. And as someone who purely tanks in Postscriptum, that is my passion. Going up against the 6GA guys, it was a tough matchup. We was constantly pressed against the wall by them. They had very good coordination between their armor and infantry. I can remember at one point 2 Churchills ambushed me out of nowhere, and safe to say, it didn't go very well for us. So yeah, they're very well organized, especially when it comes to their armor. So
Yeah, they know what they're doing with that.
yeah. The next team would be the Rusty 40 that I just mentioned, which is Rip and 40 to 1.
Yeah, so that's kind of an old alliance that's come back. So because when I started out in the game in about 2018 and joined 40 to 1, we hadn't played any matches before, and Rip had quite a few experienced match players from the squad days. They have a big presence in squad and some other games, and they're a very large clan, Rip, um, and uh, so they were kind of mentoring and helping us through. So we teamed up with them against some other teams, and then we started to play games against them. There was a lot of mixing and matching. So the Rip guys, I know quite a lot of them very well. They're really, really good bunch of people. Um, and 40 to 1 again. It's my old clan, so I'm always what's the word? I've got a soft spot for them when I see them
Yeah.
in games as well. I want to see them do well. To see them both playing together is fantastic. And the Rusty 40, I love the name. Whoever came up with that, it's a great combination. And their new logo as well. I thought it was very clever the way they put that together. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing them. Oh, they're resting on this round, aren't they? Yeah. Yeah, I've got a lot of associations with those two particular clans, so it'd be good to see them do well.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. The next team would be. I've just lost it. Give me a second. It is the King's German Legion, which is first AL, WFT, and IR9.
Yeah, we fight to win WFT. Yeah, so I think they're a smaller clan than IR9 and First AL. First AL and IR9 are probably two of the biggest clans in Postscriptum, and they were the finalists as well in season one. First AL against IR9 in the RAS game mode. So we fight to win. Joined them for season two. They're both clans. IR9 and First AL weren't able to put their full weight behind it, their full teams in. I think they're a multi-gaming clans now, so they spread out into other games. So I think there's a Hell Let Loose tournament going on. So a lot of First AL players are committed to that, and they wanted something different, I guess. I think some of them weren't keen on offensive game mode, so they had a number of reasons why they didn't have as many players wanting to come in, because I think they were looking forward to having their own full team of First AL. Um, but they have a very, very good friendship with IO9. I think they used to train together, and then they ended up against each other in the final. So that was quite a good test. And I think First AL were worried because they were, that in the training that IO9 do so well. And IO9 was allied with BIA in the final, called Steel Pact. That was their team name. So BIA have got a strong association with IO9 as well. And Virgil, has happily told me about the grueling training sessions that they used to have, and they trained very, very hard. So they deserved that win, I think, in end of season one. So IO9 are the season winners. I think they're the ones to beat. They're not. It's not showing up that way on the scoreboard at the minute. But I would not discount them at all. And combined with First AL and We Fight to Win, that's a potent force there. We'll have to see how that develops.
I agree. I actually casted the round two game of King's German Legion versus Rusty 40. And as you mentioned, IR9, they kind of do have a reputation. Their infantry is so good. They just rotate. I think I described them as a hurricane. They rotate in, they wipe you out, then they move on to the next spot. They're mobile, they're very well coordinated. And I think they've got a bit of a reputation for how good their infantry is. And
Paper on stone, I like to describe them. Paper on stone.
yeah, exactly.
They're the paper that as soon as you hit them, they just wrap around you, and that's it. They're very tightly played, and they're very well rehearsed. Where they practice a lot. I don't know if they've been doing that as much for this season. I suspect some of their players are involved in other games and stuff at the moment. So I don't know how many of their veterans are in. Clearly not. They did have a full team last season, so clearly
yeah,
quite a few are not present. So I don't know if that's going to affect their performance. And the similar thing with First AL. First AL don't underestimate them as well. They're very well organised, and they've also had an influx of players from RIP, and some ex 40 to 1 players I think that were lingering, and some of them are very, very experienced. So they've changed those teams considerably, I think. And again, it depends if they're all playing in it, because they are multi-gaming, and they're often called away into other games as well. But we'll see how they get on.
yeah, and that leads on to the final team, which is Arma Group and Adler, which is 7-1 PSD, the 39 EIR, and the UBA and the 7 ID. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but yeah, that's the final team for Group 2.
Yeah, 91st Panzer, 390 Infantry Regiment, I think it is, UBA and 77 ID. I forgot what UBA means now. I had it a minute ago. I've played with. There's a few UBA people that keep cropping up on the servers I've been on since forever, so they're quite an old one. Same with 390. I think 7ID and 91st Panzer. I think they used to play with Sturm a lot. Maybe they still do. There's a group called Kampf Group Kempf. I think I'm saying that right. Kampf Group Kempf, which is like I think it's what the Germans used to do when they would just bring in assorted units to make a group, an army group, or battle groups, should I say, to send against a force and so on. So it's kind of like scratch built units that they would, an association of different units to support each other. So that's how they modelled their smaller clans together into a team, if you like. But Sturm have this time they've gone with CIB. And some of the other smaller units, I think, have joined Army Group Adler. I keep pausing when I'm doing my casting for that. I've done them twice now because I keep wanting to say Alder for some reason. Like, is that the tree, Alder? Army Group Alder. Anyway, yeah, I know them very well now because I just cast 2 games in a row against Red Devils, and they are very well organised. Their infantry is very good. They reacted very well on the defence of Heilsum Hotel, repelling counterattacks and so on. And they had some good ideas as well on the strategy side. Their armor, I haven't really watched enough to form a strong opinion. I missed quite a lot of the the armor engagements, but I don't think the armor performed particularly well. They didn't contribute as much as they could have. And whereas 7AD's armor was really, really strong in both those games. They didn't have a great start in the first one, but once they were let loose, they started to really take on the Army Group Adler's armor quite well. So yeah, we'll have to see on that one. But they've been a strong team in this group, Army Group Adler. They could end up winning this group.
Yeah, exactly. So we've covered all the teams now. So what games do we have this weekend?
Yeah, so we got Parabellum against 501E. That I'm probably the most excited to watch because Parabellum were champing at the bit. They're really, really keen. It's been 4 weeks now. Everyone else has been having games and they just want to get stuck in. 501E, they're a really organised clan and they've done exceptionally well so far. So I'd like to see what happens between them two for sure.
Yeah, and I'm just making sure I've got my dates right. Sunday we've got 6GA versus Armor Group Adler, and I'll be casting that on Sunday. And I can't remember the time for the other game. Do you remember the time for the other game? And who
I
might
don't
be
have
casting it?
No, I don't have the times. I don't have the information in front of me at the moment. But
Okay.
I know all the. Let me see if I can quickly find it on the Discord.
Pro to anti-tank tactics. It's a good clip, but it's not appropriate for right now.
Yeah, so we should have at least 6 teams playing. So yeah, Red Devils versus the King's German Legion, round 3. That's just before 8, quarter to 8, on the 8th. That's the Sunday, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep.
Then we have 501E versus Parabellum. That's on the 13th, though. That's next Friday, and then the
Yep.
15th. So what they're doing is they're doubling up. They're having 2 matches that weekend. So they're kind of skipping this weekend, and they're going to have both their matches next weekend.
I can
13th
see.
is the Friday, and then 15th the Sunday. They're
Yeah.
both at 9 o'clock as well, CET time.
Yeah, I think I'm casting all them games actually. So if you're not already, be tuned in on the weekends because I think I'm casting most of these games actually coming up.
You're on the 13th, Yazoo, with Mr. Pro, and then the 15th it's T and Tanas from First AL's casting it, and then they have a free slot on the 15th. So if you're around on that Sunday, you may be able to cast both those games.
I think I've already spoke to them, so yeah, I think I'm already up for it.
I might just need to update it.
Yeah,
Then.
yeah. I'm just looking at my own schedule, and I've got so many events coming up and stuff. I lose track at this point. But yeah, anyway, so we've got a busy weekend of a few games coming up, and also next weekend for round 3. Speaking of round 3, it is best layer 4. Now, how do you think the teams are going to do on this game? In this round, should I say?
Well, it's one of those maps which it's already caused a ruckus. As it is, there are quite a few players who really don't like it and don't think it'll make a good tournament map. But we did discuss this right at the beginning when we were looking at what maps to include in the random, because they're randomized. We didn't pick these maps. They're selected at random, the layers in the map layer. And we left best in because it is a pain. It's not ideal. But it's a tough map for 80 players. It's really more suited to sort of 50 players, maybe 25 each side. It's kind of a seeding map almost, but what it does offer is some very, very close quarters combat. You're packed together heavily, and you've got a bridge to cross. You've got quite a lot of cover, and north and south, and it has a lot of challenges. You gotta. If the Germans can just get across that bridge and fast, then it's really going to be quite tough for the Brits to hold those caps for the defenders. And this is kind of sorting out the strongest teams from the weaker ones already, because it's going to be a combination of resilience and holding those caps. And do you burn those tickets throwing bodies to defend that ford, or do you let them through and try and conserve your tickets? Because a cap is 200 victory points. You can burn a lot of infantry tickets or even vehicle tickets trying to hold that cap, because just throwing bodies in the way can be the difference between it. But if you do that and you still lose the cap, then that's a lot of small victory points you've lost. And if it comes to a draw, they've gained a big advantage. So for the defender, you want to deny the attacking team those SVPs as much as possible. And as the attacker, we wanted to give the attacker an incentive to attack. We don't want boring static games where you're firing at each other across the river and nobody moves. We want dangle that carrot, if you like, and make people go for the kill and take risks. And I've seen some really good strategies employed in round 2, where I think it was the Rusty 40 I was watching. They didn't go straight for the first cap. They actually marched a section from Maine, which I couldn't believe. But what they did was they sent everything they had on a wide flank in vehicles to try and take the hotel, because it's tough to get before they'd taken the first cap. And then I think their intention was to draw strength away from that first cap while holding it, and then then hit that first cap. And they were mortaring the heck out of that first cap, so they were taking tickets off the defenders. But the King's German Legion were very, very resilient, and they held both, and they did split their force eventually and took them off the hotel. But it was a very bold move, and I loved it because it was not what anyone was expecting, and they took a chance, and it nearly paid off. And if it had have paid off, it would have been brilliant. They'd have been singing about it for a long time, but unfortunately it didn't. And the Kings, all credit to the King's German Legion. They did a splendid job of keeping them at bay. And best, there are tactics you can use and strategies you can use, and if it pays off, it will be wondrous to watch. I can't wait to watch that on the admin camp, to see what sort of ideas these old pros come up with.
No, I completely agree. And yeah, when you was mentioning about Rusty 40, that was the game I casted, and I spoke to both Dead Wizard and Jonah afterwards for an interview.
I haven't seen that yet. I need to catch up.
Yeah, it's in the interview, and I asked them why they employed this tactic. And honestly, Rusty 40 got really unlucky because the King's German Legion didn't plan to defend the first point. They gambled to defend it with a squad. So they were originally going to not defend it. So they got very lucky that they managed to hold the hotel and also defend the first cap by putting a squad there. Otherwise, if they didn't have that first squad there, they would have lost the first cap and then immediately been surrounded on the second one. So it was good getting insight of why both teams chose their tactics. And it was...
it's a gamble.
Yeah, it was a big gamble, and it paid off for King's German Legion. But going back to Best, I'm actually on the map now on the training server, and you can see the Germans, they do need to move quite swiftly while they have their tank support, because obviously there's only one crossing for their tanks in the center. Then in the south, there's a pontoon bridge that is only infantry able to be built, and then they've got a little crossing in the north into the forest. So it really is down to the attackers. They're going to have to try get across this crossing as fast as possible before the Allies get their tanks forward. Do you see any teams maybe struggling to get across the river? Sorry.
I think every team's going to struggle to get across that river. They do have options. There are several places they can cross, and there are lots of tools they can use to do that. They're well aware of what those options are. You do have artillery, bombers, smoke rounds, mortars, all of that stuff. And the infantry themselves are carrying smoke. Tanks, I just don't think are particularly effective on Best. They're like I was going to say a mobile pillbox, but on Best there's so little room to move. You're almost just a pillbox.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be great for suppression fire, and you don't want the enemy tanks and anti-tank guns taking you out. But it's quite easy to get sniped by an anti-tank gun in Best. So tanks could be more of a chain around your neck. They might be more of a ticket sink than they are a benefit. You might be better off building heavy machine gun positions with bunkers and so on, and trying to suppress with that, or anti-tank guns. There are other options. but weight of fire is what you need. And the Germans, they have the MG 34, 42. They are brilliant suppression weapons. You don't have to see where the enemy is. Just keep them topped up with ammunition. Keep pumping them into those well-known locations. It's not a big map, so it's going to be obvious where defenders are going to be trying to hold from, and they can get across the river. If they can be very aggressive in this one, and get across right into the face of the German faction before they're even allowed to get out of their main. But we have some rules in place. We're hoping that all the players, not just the leaders, but the players have checked the rules about main base camping and so on. So because we don't want to see any reports. Um, yeah, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, going back to what you just said. Then it is actually possible for the defenders to go across the river in this game. They don't have to hold on their side of the river.
No, no.
They could
Yeah, they
move
can be
across.
aggressive. Yeah, they could get some people over there and harass them, and keep harassing them. If they keep those rallies up, they're unlikely, should we say, to get an MSP across. But if they do, then
Could
well,
ask for
I'll
the
email it, not
Wabbit.
email.
I
I'll
see.
actually
I
post a
wouldn't.
carrot to whoever manages it. But um, I don't want a team to lose because they're constantly trying to drive MSPs across that bridge into anti-tank gunfire. But rallies are sufficient if they're defended. But again, it's not a big map, so you can wheedle out all these rallies, and you can find a position. I think weight of fire and spacing's important, but there's not a lot of space. You got to and movement. Sometimes movement's what you need. Timing and coordination with things like smoke barrages, are important too.
Yeah, that being said, smoke barrages. Do you think any team is going to stand out with a particular strength on this map? Because I know RIP, for example, they're very proud of their mortars. They have a very good mortar team, and they're getting a bit of a reputation from the other teams for having very accurate mortars. So I see RIP maybe doing good on this map with just so how good their mortars are. Do you see any other team maybe standing out for you on this map?
Well, yeah, I know a lot of very, very good mortar players, and some of them have moved between clans. One of the best mortar players I'd ever come across was right near the beginning, before anyone else was really well known for it, and that was Havoc. And he's actually an admin on the 40-1 server. I don't know if he's playing in the teams there. I don't think he's really that interested in playing in the clan games. But if he did, and he's with the Rusty 40, then you can bet that, yeah,
I think
he
he is. I
will.
think he was in the last game.
That might have been him then. Yeah, he's an absolutely excellent mortar player. He's accountable for killing me God knows how many times on the Arnhem map when it first got released. Yeah, I had to have words with him. But there are also some excellent. I mean, Odin had some excellent mortar players, some of the best as well, equaling to Havoc, but they're not playing sadly. So Red Devils are denied that resource. I think I think King's German Legion. I think IO9 had some good mortar players. Trying to remember now. There are definitely some other ones in some of the German factions, German clans, should I say.
Yeah.
That's some excellent mortar players as well. I think it was IO9 and another one.
You're right.
Um,
Yeah, it was because they was in the Rusty 40 game, and the exchange from the mortar teams in that game was a brilliant.
yes, yeah, it was good. It's the
Um,
speed as well. It's not just getting them on target, but it's the speed it's the coordination between those section leaders that are at the front saying, "I need mortars here, and I need smoke there, and I need it fast." It's that readjustment of fire and getting those rounds in quickly, and also stopping it. So if you're about to charge in, you want to be able to count the flight time for the last shells you just fired. Otherwise, you're going to take out that section because quite often a section leader may just move in a little too early, right into some trailing trailing rounds from those mortars. I've seen that happen far too many times. Yeah, it's not just the mortar guys. It's the way that they communicate with the infantry section leaders as well. That coordination's got to be spot on, and that's where you really maximise their use. Because quite often, as we saw in the Rusty 41, the mortars were perfect. They obliterated the defenders, and then just as they ran out of ammo, and the Rusty 40 section started to run in, King's German Legion I saw were pushed in one or two sections very fast, and it was just timing, and it was very unlucky for the Rusty 40 because they were caught out in the open and mowed down then.
yeah, exactly. And do you think there's any advantage for the defending team, whoever's defending the first round, because there won't be much tactics employed at the beginning. It's not like you can go on a wide flank on other maps. This is a very narrow almost a free corridor kind of map. You got the middle, you got the top, and you got the bottom. Do you feel the defending team who goes first is going to have an advantage going into the second round when they have to attack?
Yeah, possibly. If it, I guess it depends if they lose caps or not. If they hold it firm, then they they're going to have less of a worry when they're attacking because they know all they've got to do is just get across and get that one cap, so they could maybe take the time a bit more. The pressure's off them, but if they lose that cap and the Germans get across when it was their turn, then yeah, there's a lot more pressure on them to do the same. And likewise, a lot more pressure on the defenders, I suppose, to make sure they don't get caught. That's one of the beauty about this best map. I don't particularly like it, but it does offer a very different experience to the other maps. As you just said, you can't just run around the flank in this one. You have to take it head on, and that takes a very different set of qualities and a different kind of team to do that well. And it means taking your time, patience. It's a lot more. You can't just trust to send someone around the flank with an STG-44 and you know mow them all down while they're lying down and cover.
Yeah. I almost feel if a attacking team can take the first objective, the other objectives might just fall like dominoes. Because that first objective seems to be the wall. If you can break the wall, the rest seems a lot easier after that point. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, it's actually quite an interesting gameplay once you get past that river and you take the first cap. Then those two middle caps are quite. I think they're quite a lot of fun actually because you got they've got the town fighting in Best itself. And the church around Kirks is a fun place to fight around. And for the enemy, for the Germans, they can put rallies up in the forest to the north, which is very very dense. It's almost impossible to find rallies up there. And then in the south as well, it's quite easy to hide rallies there. So there's a lot. It suddenly opens up the map, and if you could even sneak some people around into the west and get in the bunkers there, and give you a distraction force and try and intercept the British reinforcements coming up that road, or harassing their tanks and so on. So the map does suddenly open up, but it's still quite close quarters even around Best. So yeah, I think it's after Heilsum, which is a very open map and a brilliant map for tanking on Heilsum. You now have kind of the opposite. This is an infantry map Best. It's
Yeah.
not great for tanks.
And it'll be interesting to see if any, because there are hidden areas on the map. Some areas that I've only just started discovering on the, hidden in the forest, there's hidden bunkers and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see if any teams
Oh yeah.
know about these hidden areas and other teams maybe don't and make use of them for maybe FOBs or rallies, as you say, MSPs and all that stuff. So it is a narrow map, but there are those hidden elements in the map where if a team knows about them, they can take full advantage of them.
Yeah.
All right, well, moving on to the next thing then. Getting away from round three, and I'm going to ask you this question. Why do you think the French teams are doing so good in the tournament so far?
It's an interesting question. I'm not sure I'm qualified to answer it because not being an active member of it, I haven't really been seeing what's been going on. I think they tend to run, quite a lot of stuff internally or between themselves. I'm not sure relations are particularly good between some of the coalition francophone and some of the 501e, so I don't know if they're mixing particularly. But one thing we want to do in the tournament was give everyone a place where they can play the game and not have to worry about that and just escape that, and maybe even build some bridges, and just build some respect for each other and get on with it. That's across all teams. I'm not picking on any individual or clan or anything like that. It's just we wanted a the mission of the EU ladder is to run a tournament. What the rules are and what the maps are and what the game mode is second to all of that. So our primary aim is so that everyone can have fun and to promote the game. Well, to promote everything really: the game, the clans, the teams, the casters. Like yourself, we might not have big names casting these matches and so on because it's a 30-minute delay, but we do offer content and an opportunity for people to get started and practice it. I'm playing around as well, doing some casting. I find it really enjoyable. Some people might want to take it further and use it as a stepping stone, to do more and do other games and so on. So we're providing an opportunity as well, and at the same time, we're hoping everyone benefits because casters provide oversight like a referee. They don't referee the matches, but nobody knows where you are, where you're looking, and what you're seeing. So that hopefully encourages, um, discourages, foul play or exploiting or cheating or anything like that, and also abusive behaviour and disrespect. We don't want any of that in the ladder. So having casters present at present, kind of enforces that as well as promoting it. So I can only see wins in this setup that we're doing. So we're pushing harder on it, and I'm really really happy to see. It seems to be really successful, and we had quite a few casters join up recently. So yeah, we're certainly building up the content.
Yeah, yeah. I think everyone wins from having casters involved, especially for the teams. I mean, when I was in RIP and we played our first team, I loved watching back the replay from casters to see where I
Yeah,
could improve, how I got beaten, why did the other tank crew,
yeah,
do
it's
what they
invaluable
did.
to the teams to
Yeah,
watch their own gameplay. Why? How did the enemy do that? Where were they? Why did we lose these tickets? Assess were their medics reviving enough and all that kind of stuff. So it's valuable to everyone. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So, who do you think is going to make it all the way to the final? What two teams stand out for you?
I got to say the French teams are looking very strong, and that would be a heck of a titanic clash. I think if we got 501 and Coalition Francophone in the finals. They're in the same group though, so they will probably, I think, both go through to the finals. But Parabellum are very very hungry, and they have some very good experienced players. And if they knock 501 for six, then it's going to be between them and Coalition Francophone really to see how they get on. Just checking who they played in. No, they haven't played yet. Yeah, so yeah, it's hard to say yet because Parabellum haven't played, so we're not sure if they're feeling their best veterans, and if they're all trained up and ready to go. I have seen Parabellum are doing a lot of practice games though, so I think they are not taking this lightly. I think they're ready.
Yeah, yeah, they look quite ready and hungry. Um, for anyone who isn't in a clan, is there a way they can get involved in the EU tournament?
Yes, so we were mindful of the fact that we wanted to open this up to anybody, anyone that just came into the game's quite new or has been. I know a lot of players that are not signed up in a clan, and they're brilliant players, great team players. They just don't want to be in a clan environment. It's not that they've anything against them; it's just not for them. But they often play in groups, so in their own little clan, ad hoc clans, and they play with other people in clans all the time. I know a lot of these sorts of players. You could class me as one, to be honest. So I wanted a way that if I wanted to play, I could. It's a little difficult now. The ladder's underway now it's started because teams have kind of formed up and they've got um, their selected players ready. But the way it works is called recruited volunteers, and on the Discord there is a channel where you can post your availability that you'd like to join a team and take part. And if teams are short on players, they can dip into that pool and hire you, or they may know you. They may know you by reputation because some of these players have been around for 2 years. There's one guy, Cops Bandit. He's in Odin now, but he's got over 5,000 hours in this game, and he could do any role. So if he put his name down there, probably most of the clans would try and poach him. He's a bit like a star player. So that's one way you can get in. But even if you're brand new though and you've never done it before, stick your name down, and if there's room, can recruit you. That was probably the best time to do that was before the ladder started because we are low on population generally in Postscriptum at the time we started, which is just unfortunate. And that would have been the best time to sort of get into one of these teams as they're trying to check how many numbers because nobody was 100% sure if they'd have the full 40 until very close to the day because we start organizing this months before the actual season starts.
Yeah, and I just placed a link in chat to the website where people can actually join the Discord. Best place to go would be the Discord for all information about the tournament, I believe, along with the
Yeah,
website.
yeah, the ladder's a great promotion tool. It's good for. It's got a list of all the casters on it. It's got a list. It's got a calendar, so you can see the events and who's casting it, and links to their Twitch streams and YouTube channels to find that. So that's where the website's good. But the Discord is the rule book, if you like. It's where all the commanders go to discuss any issues where we administrators might pass a judgment on a report or a new exploit, things like that. The rules are also listed there in 5 or 6 languages. We got Russian, German,
Yep.
Italian, Spanish, English. I don't think we got Welsh yet, but maybe Melcher could help us out with that one.
Welsh. We don't need them. Keep them out.
So yeah, we that's where if you want to know the how, or even the why, then the Discord's probably the best place. But the website, is brilliant because that came out of nowhere and it started off as a little personal project for the French community, and he decided, well, I can make it a .eu website, and what does this look like? And we've had barely any input to it. He's just made it, and it's just perfect, So we're really really pleased that he's done this, and let us use that platform. So yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's all my questions for the EU ladder. Before we move on to the next little topic, is there anything you want to add about the EU ladder, or any questions from chat? Anything you would want to add, Wabbit?
Oh, is there a chat? I'm not seeing it. Sorry.
I'm live on Twitch. Yeah, I'm gonna make this into a video later. I didn't get time to do the advertisement promotion for this. It's been a busy week,
No, no worries about that. Yeah,
so
yeah, don't worry about that. Yeah, there's quite a lot of most of the casters are new, so we're not expecting top, uh, everything to be in place straight away. What all I managed to do and Virgil managed to do was we just made a bit of artwork and stuff for people to use just to get them going, and then you can go and develop that as you go. But I've watched quite a lot of the casters. And they've all been brilliant. I don't think Mr. Pro's done one yet. He did the finals last year. Did a really good job
yeah,
with
he's
Chris
been very
Mo.
busy, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. So it'd be good to see him back and Chris Mo as well. But yeah, it's I don't have any questions myself. I'm really pleased at the way the season's been going. Because there were some issues in season one. It was the first season, and to be expected, we had to run through the rules again and rewrite large sections of that. And there was some fallout between
When
certain clans
Russia?
or players
What do you
sometimes
mean?
as well.
When
So
Russia?
what we tried
What
to
do you
do this
mean
time
that?
is address that by putting in the four pillars, which we've made as important as the rules, as breaking an exploit or cheating. Is the respect level, the friendship, fair play. That's what we really want to promote, so that everyone that comes
A
in
Russian update to
can
what?
focus on just enjoying the
The
game
game?
and playing it, being the best at the game, not being the best at finding the
Okay.
exploits. We want you to be, on the ball like IR9's infantry section play, and army group adler and so on. They've been doing a lot of training and so on and practicing that, and you can see it on the cast how well they do. So um, that's what we want to see is excellence and showing off what you can do in a game like this. It's a brilliant core. The gunplay in Postscriptum's some of the best I've come across, and the maps are brilliant as well. Well, most of the best is bit Marmite,
No more map.
but that's the challenge of it. You can't have the best maps all the time. You can't have it the way you want. This is all about a full-on smash in the teeth across that river.
No, I completely agree. Well, we'll move on to the last little section because I know you've got a limited time now. Um, so community events. This is something I've only just recently learned about myself that there is actually a large player base for community-driven events for Postscriptum, where a server, a clan, or just a host, a player who has his own server will create unique special events. Um, Tomorrow there's actually going to be one hosted by Storm, which is a 1940s tank battle where I believe it's going to be 20 versus 20 tanks, which is kind of a cool thing. Um, what do you feel about these custom events? How do you feel about them?
Yeah, I think they're fantastic too. They're like one life-driven ones. Where I think sixth GA, sixth guards armored, and I can't remember the names now. Um, there's quite a few units that do that, which is a bit more. Yeah, I mean, you literally only get one life, so you
Yeah,
play it very differently. You're much slower and you're much more cautious and so on. And then I think the majority of these events are like Sturm have been running these sorts of events since the game came out. They have a lot of players who are really into their history and do a lot of research, and they like to try and bring elements of that into Postscriptum and reenact it as you were, but within the game mechanics as well, and make it fun. Yeah, they're always doing that. They don't tend to have a seeded server, but they do have servers and they use them for these sorts of events, and they've been posting them for quite a while. I think they're at the minute probably one of the most prolific ones. Easy Company, over in the States, they run a lot still as well. They're really well organized. Again, they've got some brilliant researchers. Um, there were some other clans I think that have fallen off recently that don't do it as much. But it's another thing to remember in this tournament is all these clans, they're not all tournament pro players that way. They're not. That's not where they've come from. Some of them are. Some of them are very competitive. Coalition Francophone have a lot of very competitive players in there, and they're very driven for the win. Whereas, groups like maybe 501E and 7AD and so on, uh, they're a bit more into the it's not the role playing side of it, but the reenacting certain battles. They want to see things like the SDK and the sandbox release so that they can, um, start to make the game a bit more like it was. Set up realistic section loadouts and maybe tone down some of the SMG spam and things like that. I think and make the maps a bit more joined up so they can play a campaign level almost. So there are different kinds of clans and teams that are in this ladder, and they're all playing a slightly different way. And you'd be surprised. I think the 5-man meta was supposed to be, the winner in this game, but 501E deployed 8 and 9 man infantry sections with lots of rifles, and they smashed the Northern Union. So it proves it's not the 5-man meta is not the king. You can do it another way. So
Yeah, and it speaks to the enjoyment about this game. I think well, myself personally, using my self experience, only the last 2 weeks I learned about these unique special events where you'll have server admins go and they'll spend 5 hours setting up
oh yeah, they put a lot
fortifications
of
and
work in.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible, and the rule sets they have and how well it's run. Um, it's a shame that I feel most of the community don't actually realize there's these special events that are going on. So I don't know about
There,
yourself, but
there is a there
I'll
is a facility though for that to be promoted. I mean, one is we can do that as
yeah,
casters as well, and in the EU ladder we're quite happy to point um, people at these events as well. In fact, that was another thing I forgot I needed to discuss with the admin was setting up another channel, to so that because I know Stern posts quite a few events in the Postscriptum
yeah,
community
they do,
events
yeah.
channel, as well as Easy and a couple of others, not many. Um, and I know the French run some as well, but they don't tend to post them. I've not seen them as many. So getting something like that in the EU ladder so they can repeat it there. But generally, it's the same audience, the same membership. It's probably more active in the EU ladder, but it's much smaller than the Periscope's Postscriptum one. But that there is a community events channel, and uh, I'm a lead moderator on that, and is one person per community is allowed to have rights to use the at everyone command. It's a very, very powerful
Yeah,
ping,
yeah.
which obviously Snazzy Duck uh, is a slither away from taking away from everybody if it gets abused, or because nobody likes to get pinged constantly. And there's thousands of people that are members on that Discord, so you do have to sign up to a set of rules, and as long as you abide by them and make sure your post has specific things in it like the time, how to sign up, what language it's in, and all of that good stuff. And then it's so that players can join in. Then you're allowed to post, and you can do that once. So that's generally how it happens. But I'm not sure enough people read those pings.
Yeah, which is a shame. I'm currently showing one of the events from last week, which was the Cut in the Corridor event. So as you said,
Yes, I saw some of that. Yeah,
it's not just one life events. There's semi-realistic events, there's historic events, tank battles, all these kinds of unique events, and I actively encourage anyone to go take part in them. Especially, you don't need to be a clan member, you don't need to be a super serious guy in the game. They take anyone, and it's it's great to see that Postscriptum has this opportunity to not only just be the standard, you're either playing clan battles or you're playing on public servers. They've got these unique events, and I don't really see any other FPS aside from Squad, which is basically the same guys, doing these kinds of special events. You won't see this, for example, in Call of Duty or Battlefield, for example. So
yeah. I think it was Easy Company, or definitely, I think it was an American group did an event to raise money for. So when COVID first hit, the Hartenstein Hotel had
the
just reopened.
hotel,
It had a
yeah,
massive refurbish. They'd spent a lot of money investing in it, and then they relaunched right in the middle of the lockdown. So they were, in dire straits. So there's quite a few things, like Postscriptum, sorry, Periscope. Um, Put one of their developer hoodies on eBay, and that raised quite a heck of a lot of
it
money.
did, yeah.
I certainly couldn't afford it, and there was an event as well to try and raise money by playing one of these matches where I think it was the last stand at the HQ at Hotel Hartenstein of the First Airborne, things like that. So you know there's lots of different ways you can play this game. There was another one called Battle of Arnhem, and it was last year. Again, an Easy Company event. I played in that one. Um, Holding the bridge with a Bren gun. It was great fun. But what they did was they coordinated, they tried to reenact the battle. So they had King Tigers coming in from the southwest, and they had, was it King Tigers? I think it was Tigers they used. Um, and they timed it so the section leaders knew where they needed to be at certain times. So there was an element of structure, but you could still break the outcome could still differ. If the Brits held on long enough, then they would be classed as a win, which
Yeah.
they historically did not. But we had a guy with a Piat. I'm going to call him out now. Wild Ewok. He was great. He in 40 to 1 with me at the time, and he somehow got rogue, slipped through the infantry net, and found an ammo crate as well, which was perfect. He had a Piat, and he took out both King Tigers and quite a significant amount of infantry in the process till he finally
Yeah.
copped it. What a hero. He did a great job in that. So there's some great highlights, and it wasn't a one life event. But it was what would I call a choreographed event with, you know, the players themselves could do what they want within certain limitations, and it was a brilliant representation of the battle and a good way to celebrate the anniversary as well.
Yeah, and as you said, I think not only do these events have unique rules which make them special, but also the gameplay in these events. So the Cut in the Corridor event, for example, the German sides were doing a blitzkrieg with 2 half tracks and a panther. And I don't know how many times you've seen an effective use of a half track on a public server, but I never see it. And seeing in this event tactics used that you don't see not only in clan battles but on public servers with half tracks, for example, it makes something special about these events, which makes it another appealing thing that I recommend anyone to do.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why that's why most of the clans exist, is because they want to replicate the battles in that way, and the game is so close to being able to do that. But when you get into the public arena, the meta play kind of takes over, and also the level of communication and coordination just isn't there on a team-wide level. It's close. You have, a couple of sections working well together, or a good commander and one good logic section, or something. You don't quite have that overall match, but in a tournament you do. But again, even in a tournament, teams are still pushed towards more the meta way of playing, because it's more about winning um, than trying to replicate an actual battle. And also with these organized events which are choreographed a little more, you can set up, like you say, some people spend hours and building the sets and putting in bunkers in the right places and spawning in vehicles that were there. So the new deck system is a little more sympathetic to that, because you can get multiple tanks now of the same type, whereas before it was random. You were really at the mercy. It was a very unpopular
Yeah.
development, the random spawn system. It really upset a lot of clans, in particular that wanted to run events like this, because that was taken away from you. You do have admin commands to spawn vehicles in, but it's a bit of a pain to have to do that. So yeah, I'm really happy that these things are still going. Sturm are definitely one of the more prolific ones. They've got tons of experience, tons of very, very knowledgeable people in their clan as well that love to put these things together. They do struggle to get players, unfortunately. That's not on them. That's just on the size of the community and maybe lack of awareness of that. So if this helps, then I really hope that promotes them doing even more, and other clans having a go as well.
Yep, I completely agree. I think Storm is running weekly events now, so anyone who wants to take part, be sure to join the official Postscriptum Discord. But I also put a link to their event-only Discord where they promote events every week. Like I said, there is one tomorrow. We'll be casting it, so be sure if you can. They've still got spots open. Sign up to it. It's going to be 20 versus 20 tanks, I believe, from the 1940s area. So it's going to be really interesting. Um, Aside from the unique events, then I'm on to my last topic that I've got down. It's the upcoming mods. Tomorrow, there's going to be a little talk on Twitch by Dangerous SD. I'll post a link in chat to his Twitch, where they're going to be the developers of the Chapter Mercury mod are going to be speaking to certain audience members from the Postscriptum community about the mod and how it's progressing and asking questions. What do you want to see coming out of these mods? There are 3 big mods at the moment. What would you like to see from them?
Oh, there's all sorts. I mean, maps, obviously, layers. My 2 favorite ones are going to be Crete and North Africa. The Shifting Sands one in particular. That's my favorite one. Um, I do know the Mercury one that they've got a lot of really good guys working on that, and there's probably more content coming out from them at the moment. They're very well organized as well, from what I can tell. And I think when the SDK drops, I'm hoping anyway, the added impetus will bring in more people who want to help and do mods, and some really good people to fill out those mod teams and maybe propel them along faster. It's not always a good idea. Sometimes it can cause a bit of tension or friction, but I'm hoping that release will help flesh out some of these mod teams even more. It sounds like the Shifting Sands ones, the ones I've heard the least about. I'm not sure if they're in as advanced as the other two, um, but I'm really hoping to see a lot of good stuff there. Can't wait to try North Africa. But yeah, the Crete one is brilliant. Another favourite of mine actually, because I love it when you see the Commonwealth forces, and there's definitely a mix of forces there. You've got the Maori. I think the Australians are there. Was it other New Zealanders? I think the Aussies are
I
there.
think both Australia and New Zealand, I think.
Yeah, and then of course some British as well. So it's kind of Anzac and Brits, and I think is there a Greek unit as well? I think maybe supporting.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few different Commonwealth ones. So I'm hoping they will give them some attention as a faction, like they did with the Polish, I guess, and the British. You can barely see the difference, but the grey berets and the red berets and so on. But there's a bit more difference between the two. I know they've captured a few features that the Anzac had. I think it's the hats. Can't remember what they're called now. Um, so yeah, and the artwork coming out from the Mercury team looks brilliant. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one. Now, the Russian front one, Chapter Red, their models are fantastic. I absolutely love the stuff they're doing. Just from a totally personal point of view, I'm not that fond of the Russian front, whether it's reading about it in history or playing it. It's never been my thing. I don't know why. It hasn't been my thing, but it's a hugely popular mod. Probably, I probably think it's probably the most popular mod out there that people have been asking for. So that I've no doubt that will do well, and I'm really impressed with some of the work they've been doing as well. I think they've got quite a big team. I think so. I think they're going to be really successful. And they've been at it for a while as well. They're definitely championing it a bit. All of them are, and I hope PG really support them and push this SDK along, because they've been praying for it for so long. We
Yeah,
all have.
I agree, and I think the good thing about the especially the Russian front mod, we don't actually have a large Russian community really in Postscriptum. So I feel that mod alone could maybe bring in a larger community from the Russian theatre. Obviously, people from Russia and the eastern
Well,
side
the
of
Northern
Europe.
Union had predominantly Russian players in the
Yeah,
EBC team that had to pull out. So there is the grain. The grain's still there. That seeds are still there. They just, yeah. I think you're right. The Russian front mod will hopefully bring a lot of in, not just the EBC, but maybe create some new clans as well. And I know they were working on the different languages as well in Periscope for the game. I don't know what's happened to that. I need to check that, but yeah, you're right. Well, hopefully that will lift it. It'll find a new player base, won't it? Another set of
yeah.
players to come in.
Another good thing as well is that all the mod teams are actually working together side by side, which is good. They're sharing assets, they're sharing content, they're advertising for each other, which I think you don't really see in many communities. I know there's some games where modders are very closed. They want to keep it to themselves. It's their mod. They don't want to share their work with other people. So it's fresh to see the three separate modding teams actually working, sharing assets with each other.
Yeah, I think part of that is it's they've been asking for it for so long. In that vacuum, you kind of they look to each other to support each other now. It's got to that point, and it's a very small community, so it's easy that they're going to have played in games together or played in events together, and got to know each other that way. And it's inevitable they're going to start asking, oh, how did when you start to show off your work, that there's going to be some questions to and from. So I'm not surprised it's happened. I'm very pleased it's happened. I think it's a benefit to everyone. The players that are desperate to see some mod content coming up. Hopefully, it will end up accelerating it. Maybe they can share models. As players, I don't think we care. We just want to get some of this content out there and start playing on it. But I don't want to rush the mod teams too much, because I know they
Yeah.
want to do a good job. Well, I am impressed with how kind of professional they are in their approach and the research they're doing. They're not just picking stuff that like the big name vehicles, whether it's a King Tiger or something. They're looking at some quite small details as well that they want to get right, and that is important in a game like Postscriptum, because it helps immerse you in it. Yeah.
Yeah, and what I think great as well these mods as well is they're focusing on theaters that you don't really see in games. So, for example, we've got Africa, we've got that coming up in one of the mods, and Greece. Obviously, we get the Eastern Front quite a bit, but Africa and Greece are theaters you don't really see very much. I don't. I think recently Battlefield did Africa a little bit, but
Yeah.
it's going to be great to see theaters that are not covered in games or not really talked about much in history or TV shows either.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Crete's it's a really interesting battle if you read about it, and it's quite a touch and go as well. You know, the German paratroopers did an incredible job. There was quite a few mistakes made on both sides. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to playing that one. If there was another theatre that would challenge North Africa for the best or my most favourite one, it would probably be the Crete one. You know,
Yeah.
Operation Market Garden is my favourite operation, but North Africa as a whole, I just love the setup there. And again, I think it's the mix of Commonwealth units. Because you've got the Gurkhas, you've got the Polish, the Free French, you know, there's the British, the Indian. I think the Indian Fourth Infantry Division, there's a few infantry divisions from India that were there as well. And I think to me that just means you can create so many different models and keep the game fresh when you could play the same layer as a different Commonwealth nation
Yeah.
in effect and have maybe slight mix up. You don't even have to change the equipment, you know. I don't know. I don't know if I want to see a mix of different units in one faction at the same time. You know, we got Scotsmen running around in a kilt and an Indian, you know,
Yeah,
and a
that'd be a bit
Gurkha and
weird.
so on. It might be a bit too much. That would make me feel like I'm playing Battlefield 5. But you know, the mod teams, I'm very happy. Very, I think everyone's very happy that they're focusing on sort of a historical approach to it and a realistic approach to it. Yeah, so I've got no concerns there.
Yeah, and to just touch on quickly, I know they haven't really released content, but they have the Russian modders have said if all goes successful, they will work on the European Fortress mod and also a Fall of the Samurai mod. So obviously Germany, Berlin, and also the Pacific. So that'd be great as well.
Yeah, and I think that's why I said I think that team's quite big because they have very big ambitions as well that go outside of the Russian front. I mean, the Russian front could easily keep them occupied for a heck of a long time, but it's a bit like the Chapter Z thing with Periscope. Sometimes you need to just change direction, do something else for a bit, and that re-energizes the team and gets you focused on it because then you're more productive, and then you can always come back, you know, and add more uh, to the Russian front or whichever one you've done previously.
Yeah. One last thing I'll talk on with the mods then is how would you like to see them implemented into the game? Sorry. How I would love to see them is they're actually released hard into the game, so you don't need to go download an extra thing on Steam. You download Postscriptum, and maybe there's a workshop button inside Postscriptum where you can click, and then the mod is just automatically installed for you. How do you like to see the mods in the future work with the game?
I think the way it's been talked about in the community channels, if you like, and the modding channels, is it's pretty much how I'd like to see it implemented, which is what they're aiming for, and that is um, obviously it's a bit like well, I won't go to the DLC topic. Let's just stay with this one.
Yeah.
So what the way it would work is if you go onto a server with that modded content, then it will download it. So that would probably slow down your loading of the game. So you'd have to download it that way. But I probably should take a step back. Is first of all, I think before you can get to that point, is Periscope would examine the mod first, and they would sort of whitelist it as approved to go
Yeah.
in. So
Yeah.
that automatically, sorry, that enforces a level of quality or assurance, if you like, before because you can't just have any old thing. You might have a half Starship Troopers, half zombie, half English Civil War mod suddenly crop up out of nowhere, and people are wondering what the hell's going on. So, and it could be a disaster, and it could really actually be a detriment to the game. So, by whitelisting or having that control, then Periscope can control the quality of it and give a bit more assurance to players that come in. Um, I don't know how that's going to go, and I don't know how well that's going to be supported, and I don't even know if that's definitely going to happen. But that's something that they've talked about in the past, and I think that's still the approach they're taking. I believe. Don't quote me on that. I don't work for them. All right, I'm not in their studio, but that's what I've heard in the past in discussions. So. So there's a whitelisting element. You get approved, you get in, and of course there's going to be some support there from the studio. Um, on those elements, and then once they're tested and they're working and they can go live, when you join the server, you could have some chapter 1 maps, and then there's a chapter Mercury map or a chapter Shifting Sands map,
Yeah.
and so on. I don't know how it would work if you had more than one mod. I don't know if Periscope even know the answer to that yet, but so it might be a problem if there's more than one mod. But a lot of server hosts tend to have 3 or 4. You have like a selection of servers. They'll have a training server and a couple of game servers, or an event server as well. So they seem set up to be able to accommodate multiple um, rotations, if you like, with different mods possibly. So there's nothing set in stone yet. That's all I do know. And the SDK, until it's delivered, we're not going to be 100% sure how that's going to look. And the modding teams are obviously very keen for
Yeah.
that to happen as well.
I just have. I would love to see them, like you said, implemented into the game somehow. Because I'm just having flashbacks to I can never pronounce this Tal Vista Winter War, which
Oh yeah, yeah.
think was a mod for Red Orchestra 2, and it was standalone on Steam. And as good as it was, because it was standalone, even though it was free to play, I felt like the player base never grew because people would look at it and like, what is this? It looks old, it looks dated, it doesn't look, free to play. Like, it kind of had that impression where it kind of killed itself on launch to grow bigger numbers, just because it wasn't attached to Red Orchestra. It was its own standalone thing. So I'm kind of fingers crossed myself that the mods are officially incorporated into the game somehow, and they're not this side thing where you have to go download an extra thing on Steam, because I feel that
Yeah,
wouldn't be great to the community.
I think it's basically how it works in Squad, because it is the same kind of SDK tool set as Squad is. It's Squad's core, so it makes sense that the the functionality remains the same, unless Periscope decide they want to go and unpick that functionality and change it in some way, and they have authority to, I guess, from Epic or OE. I don't know what the obligations are between Periscope and OE and Epic and how that all works. That's their business. It's not for us to know. Um, so I don't know if how much they're able to change, but from my understanding is it would pretty much mirror how they do it in Squad with their mods. So I don't think it's going to be a problem for most players. The last thing we need is a system that ends up dividing players and breaking down the community into ever smaller partitions. We had that with Armored mode. It's a great mode, and there's a very very dedicated core of players that love it. There's just not enough of them. And if you run a server with armor on it, you can't run combined arms, the standard offensive and RAS maps and invasion maps, unfortunately. So um, yeah, I guess that's where we are at the moment.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. And that was really my last question. I know you're probably pushing time now. Is there anything you would like to add?
No, I just yeah, I've just cast my first 2 games. I was a bit nervous about doing that, so I'm really enjoying it, and I'm really enjoying watching everyone else's
I know
cast as
him,
well. There
so
wasn't enough hours in the day to watch them all, so I still got to catch up on quite a few. Um, so I'm really excited about the ladder. I'm hoping the promotions from that will filter out into the wider community and the wider game. We want to see clans being able to recruit better. I did see quite a few players started to ask, about IR9 and First AL after they competed in the finals of season 1. So I do know it works. I don't know. I don't think they got a huge wave of people, but it certainly it attracts attention. And even if you don't win the ladder or the group, when you see a team perform well, you're going to want to go, oh, they seem like the kind of guys I'd like to team up with and play, and I want to do that. I want to see more people make the leap from solo FPS gameplay on what should be a team game like COD or Battlefield, and come and give Postscriptum a try, and maybe get some of those squad players back as well. There's a lot of vets out there that have moved on, and the only way to get them back is new content, something that's more substantial, I guess, than something like Chapter Z, which was great fun. But even Periscope and under no illusions, it's not a mainstay um, game mode. It literally is just a bit of fun, and I thought it was great. I think it did a lot of good for raising the profile of the game again. And for all those that were saying the game is dead, well, you're almost right. It's undead, but it's going to go soon. So for all those people that
yeah.
hated it, don't worry, you relax. It's going to. I think Sunday's the last chance to get to play it. But it could come back. You never know.
Exactly. Well, Wabbit, I thank you for being on, and I'll hopefully see you on the show again in the future if this has been successful. And yeah, appreciate your time.
Yeah, yeah. Cheers for having me, Azu, and I'll tune into your next stream. I'm looking forward to it, mate.
All right, you take care. Have a good evening. Thank you once again.
Bye, mate. Good night.
Chat, I hope you enjoyed that. I need to be right back very quickly, and when we'll wrap up.